Hi everyone, I'm Zak Barker, 24-year-old from Barnsley. I currently work at Ardagh Glass, which is also in Barnsley, while studying at the University of Sheffield doing a mechanical engineer degree apprenticeship. So a few bit of content, what I'm going to be talking about today. So introduction, who I am, where I am and how I've got here, who Ardagh Group is, the apprenticeship route, sustainability in industry, my role, so projects that I'm working on to tackle sustainability in industry, and some future careers that I believe are in sustainability in industry, but not just in an engineering aspect, lots of different ways, lots of different roles that could be counted as that. So, bit of who I am. I left school in 2013, which is quite a while ago now. Um, I went on to study a level 3 diploma in engineering at Barnsley College for 2 years. After that, I joined Ardagh Glass on an higher apprenticeship where I studied an HNC. Upon completion of this, I got a full-time contract as a maintenance engineer, working on glass forming machines, doing breakdowns, problem solving, repairing mechs parts, lots of tool work, problem solving stuff. A little after this, I started on a degree apprenticeship at the University of Sheffield, studying mechanical engineering. So there's a variety of things that are on my course, but as part of some of the stuff that I'm doing, I apply theoretical knowledge I learn at university to practical jobs at work. So working on different projects, which I'll speak about in a bit. So first of all, who's Ardagh Group? They're sustainably, infinitely recyclable metal and glass packaging for brand owners all around the world. It's a massive company. They've got 7 billion global sales, 57 production facilities, operating in 12 countries and just moved into Africa. So another continent as well. And all of the products that they make are 100% recyclable. So everything is packaging from glass packaging to aluminium packaging. So cans and glass bottles. At the Barnsley site, we focus mainly on glass containers for the drinks industry, alcoholic drinks industry, but we still tend to do a bit of Coca-Cola or Fever Tree tonics and stuff like that. So this is the site I work at Barnsley. The pictures don't do it justice, to be fair. It's absolutely ginormous. Um, we've got 9 different machines which are creating glass bottles 24/7, 365 days a year. They operate on 4 different furnaces, and then there's a all other extent of it. So we've got like where we package them up, so they're ready to be moved by lorry to all over the world, really depending upon what we're making. So this is bread and butter flow glass making. This is a 18 section glass forming machine at Barnsley where I work. So this machine at the moment is producing Heineken bottles, I do believe, and it never stops. You can't stop a glass furnace, and unless it's like once every 15 years where you're going to stop it and build a new one. So this machine is just continuously running. We never stop it, apart from occasionally maybe once every month, once every 2 months for a couple of hours to do maintenance work or change the job over. This is inside one of the furnaces. It needs to be this large because of the amount of glass that we're making. So what happens in the furnace is you've got all your main ingredients of glass, you've got it to your desired temperature, and then it's distributed out onto the machine. So in here it can reach maximum of like 1600 degrees Celsius, and then your glass drops into your machine at between 12 and 1400 degrees Celsius, dependent upon color, weight of the glass, size of the glass container, stuff like that. So it's a very hot process with lots of excess heat that never stops. So the sustainability plan at Ardagh, what are we hoping to do? We're hoping to minimize greenhouse gas emissions, over as all industry, but obviously my focus is at Barnsley as that's where I'm based. Minimise our ecological impact and engage with local communities. So if you just like to pause this video and have a think before I move on, so if you can think of any benefits of studying through the apprenticeship route like I have done, whether that's immediate apprenticeships, advanced higher degree apprenticeships like I'm currently on, if you can think of any benefits to that as opposed to the regular route, if you just like to pause it here now. So if you've done that, general benefits, which I've got from my personal experience, obviously you earn while you learn. You're attaining invaluable working experience at work, so in your practical role every day to day, going into the factory like I have. But you've also got that theoretical knowledge which you're picking up at college or me at the moment, university. And the main biggest benefit of that is that you're becoming familiarized with the industry that you're in. So you spot key opportunities for improvements, you understand how things work better. So you might do a day at university learning about heat transfer or whatever, and then you come into work and then you see different projects like I do at the moment and different areas where you might be able to target some sustainability targets that you've currently got on site. So where you can cut down on carbon, so waste heat recovery projects, rainwater capture, looking at how the furnaces operates, speed of fans and things in the basement. So main thing for me is while you're learning and while you're working at the same time, you've got a good balance and you can apply what you're learning better. And it helps stick it in your head and you understand what actually works in industry. And there's a few other impacts, obviously, a few other advantages, should I say. Sorry. Um, you've got no debt as your employer's paying for it. Um, and you get a salary and a guaranteed job while you're studying, which is obviously a bonus. Here I'd like to speak about how following the apprenticeship route has facilitated my involvement in project work at Ardagh Group, where I mainly focus on continuous improvement projects, so tackling sustainability in industry, cutting down on CO2 emissions, looking at possible areas on how we can become greener. Um, there's lots of heat in the glass industry as it's an hot process, like I spoke about before with the furnaces. So how the apprenticeship routes work for me is that I built my level 3 foundation knowledge through the level 3 apprenticeship. I believe this foundation knowledge is needed to um, improve and grow in any engineering environment, any manufacturing industry. So I've learned the job from the bottom up. So I started out as maintenance engineer, mechanical apprentice engineer, worked on the machines, understand what makes the glass industry tick, um, understood the job from a day-to-day role. So lots of tool experience, working with more experienced engineers who've been in the industry for years. And through this, I've become more embedded in the company while I'm still continuing to learn. Um, so obviously I'm still at university now, a few years later or whatever, but I'm more embedded within the company now. So everything that I'm learning at university, thermodynamics, thermal fluids, so the study of different energies, looking at heat transfer, what we can do with waste heat recovery projects. When I come to work and I identify these opportunities, so obviously I'm embedded within the company. I understand how things work. I see opportunities. I think we could be greener there. We could cut down on CO2 emissions there. I use what I've learned at university to create a possible project proposal, put that forward to the company, which I have done already in a few areas. And by being proactive, it's helped me cut down on some CO2 emissions for the company. It's helped me use what I'm learning, something I'm passionate about, which is tackling global warming. Um, so it's very, in my opinion, it's a good route to go down, and I think there's lots of benefits to it. So if you'd like to pause this video here, just before we move on to the next part, have a think about what sectors, so what jobs, what industries contribute most towards global warming in the UK, in the world, wherever. So just like to pause it now. So if you've done that, I've got a little diagram here on the left-hand side which shows the top 5 sectors contributing to global warming. So you've got agriculture, transportation, industry and manufacturing. So industry is responsible for 30% of global CO2 emissions. And that's obviously the area that I work in. So I have an opportunity to make a positive impact on these emissions, try and cut down, look for technological advancements, continuous improvements in this process. So how we can waste less heat, how we can reuse this heat, fuels that we're burning, alternative fuels. So some of the things that Ardagh are doing at the moment, which I've been reading into and I've been discussing with different people from different plants, is the rebuilding and redesigning a furnace. So at the moment, the glass furnace is like 100% natural gas. The furnace of the future is 80% electrical powered and then 20% green hydrogen. So cutting CO2 emissions massively, and that's exactly what we need to do in the future. Another thing that could be brought into industry is the transportation route. So obviously manufacturing is making the glass bottles, but then we've also got to think and we've got to care and consider about how these bottles are getting about. So what shipping routes we're using, what transportation routes are we using? Are we using trains? Are we using lorries? What engines are they burning? Are we adding more diesel into the more CO2 emissions into the atmosphere by doing this? So there's lots of things to consider when running a business. So yeah, again, if you just like to pause the video here, have a think about any legislation which you think's in place, discuss with the class, what encourages industry to reduce their impact on the planet. So is there any rules or laws in place that's making industry cut down on CO2 emissions and take more of a care for the planet, think about what they're doing. So, sustainability in industry. There's a few issues when tackling climate change in industry. So, first and foremost, I work in the glass manufacturing business, so we need to operate as a profitable business. That's first and foremost. And then everything that we're doing to tackle climate change, be greener, become more sustainable, reaches efficiency targets, aim for net zero. We need to make sure that they're both hand in hand. So engineering lines up with environmental, as business is a profitable business as well, one that's advancing, becoming greener, looking at technological advancements. So some areas where it does work is that what we've got at the moment is that the government have put a big tax on industry. So depending upon how much tax you pay is dependent upon how much CO2 you're producing. So the more CO2 that you're producing, the more tax you pay. So looking at greener energies and looking at how we're operating is becoming beneficial to industry by sanctions put on it through the government. So if we build a new furnace that's 80% hydrogen, 20% electrical, it's not only becoming greener and an improvement for the environment, the world, but it's also a big thing for us as well because we're cutting down on costs, so we're saving money, we're not wasting as much energy, which is obviously massively beneficial to environment, but also to us as a business. And some other things that we're doing is we're looking at raw material waste, so putting the broken glass, what we call cullet, putting more of that back into making glass, so coming full circle. Glass is infinitely recyclable, so you can recycle it over and over again. So at the moment, we're running at about 50% recycling, and we're wanting to up that to nearly 80% in the next 10 years. A few other things that we're doing is that, well as obviously caring about the environment and as a business, we're a competitor as well with other people in the glass industry. So one of the main things at the moment is sustainability. So if we become a greener company, which is, as my role, I'm trying to make my plant a greener company, and there's people at other plants doing that as well, and there's people in loads of different jobs in sustainability doing that. it sells as well. So you attract more client base, you attract more customer base, you become more profitable, you earn more money. That gives you more money to do things with, reinvest with, look at greener schemes. So everything comes full circle and everything works hand in hand. So there are multiple avenues that businesses can take to reduce climate change. So, I mean, you don't even have to work in an engineering environment like me. You could work in HR, there's lots of different things that you could do. I mean, just considering and caring. So, cycle to work schemes stop people driving to work, or installing electrical vehicle charging points, which is influencing people to get electrical cars as they can charge them up at work for free. Looking at recycling, looking at logistics. So companies are introducing green bonus schemes to staff who are driving sustainability, or by working directly in a sustainability role, which I'm doing at the minute as like project maintenance engineer on site. You can influence the use of resources to prevent further damage in the environment, tackling waste heat recovery. So obviously, glass industry, like I've mentioned, it's a really hot industry. So a lot of that heat at the moment currently is wasted, and that's wasting energy. It's wasting money basically. So looking at how we can reuse that heat to the company's benefit, but it's also to the planet's benefit because we're not wasting energy. We're also by reusing that, we're cutting down on energy that we're using from other places. Engaging proactively with the community, so educating people on sustainability in industry, going into schools, talking to people, involving the community with what's going off on site, how we're tackling climate change. It encourages other people to tackle climate change. There's lots of different ways and avenues that this can be gone about. I realise I've been doing a lot of waffling and not a lot of showing you what impact I've actually had. So current projects today, I've took 420 tons every year now out of the atmosphere of CO2, which is equivalent to like CO2 produced by 155 households every single year. So obviously over 10 years or whatever, that's like 4,200 tons of CO2 took out of the atmosphere, which massive. And for someone who's interested in um, climate change like I am and cares, it's an extra added bonus to your job that you feel like you're making an impact and that you're not just going to work and picking up a paycheck. You're actually making an impact on problems that are real life and that are out there outside of work and that everyone's facing. So my role, what it involves, so I've already spoke about projects and how I identify gaps and stuff at work for efficiency, sustainability targets, and how we go about that. So some of the other things I do is look at improving all the technology, making it greener. You do this by designing systems. Well, that's what I do, designing systems, looking at alternative methods, using what I'm learning at university, what I've learned already at college on my apprenticeships, and the time that I've spent in industry, becoming familiar with it. I can look at different ways on how to target things. So looking at alternative energy methods for ones, doing pre-feasibility studies, understanding how much the current systems are costing at the moment, and then looking at how we can make that cheaper, greener, better for the environment. Um, Obviously, we can promote that then, makes us advantageous as we look like a more greener company as well when we're trying to attract customers and attract more work. And some specific projects which I'm currently involved with. One of the things I've recently completed is waste heat recovery project where I've reused the heat from the manufacturing shop floor, so from one of the furnaces that operates two machines. I've redirected this heat across what we call two heat pumps, so a dual system, and we use that excess heat now, which was just wasted and going into the atmosphere. We're using that now to heat in some cleaning tanks that we used to get in like all gunk and stuff off metal components from what we've been using on the shop floor. Another project which I'm also working on, which I'll go into in a moment, is working with Barnsley Council, looking at exploring possibilities of mine water reclamation for district heating and cooling water. So we've got a mine shaft, a borehole that's on site currently at the moment. So we're working with Coal Authority, we're working with Barnsley Council and a few other contractors to record the heat that's in this massive flooded mine, where we could possibly distribute it. So is there any new builds going up in the area, or any new schools or anything that we could supply space heating to them without connecting it to the main gas network, which is not allowed anymore on new builds. So lots of things going on. So one of the projects which I'm working on at the moment is looking at sourcing low carbon heat from abandoned coal mines. So in 1984 in Yorkshire, we had 56 working collieries, so 56 different coal pits. Um, they all worked on what we call 40 different seams. So seam 1, seam 2, seam 3. They were just like 56 because different ownership and stuff like that. Gradually, as all these pits have closed, all these underground big mine shafts are flooded. So over time, they're flooded, naturally flooded, and because of geothermal processes which go off in the earth, this water is heated and kept at a constant temperature. So the mine at Barnsley, from the data that we've took and cameras that we've put down the old borehole, is at like 20 degrees. So to use that for space heating in people's houses is very possible. It's a very green way of heating houses as opposed to what we've all got at the moment, which is central heating, so gas boilers or um, wood burners or whatever, things like that. So by working with the community and using our position as a business and what we've got on site to work with the community, and we can look at bringing the CO2 down for Barnsley as a whole and not just Ardagh. So I suppose this concept of using heat from mine water, abandoned mines to heat people's houses is pretty new to everyone, as it was to me a few years ago until I started doing research and development into it on site, working in partnership with people. So what I've got here is a small diagram on the left-hand side, which basically just shows you the basic concept of it. So basically what we've got is that on the left-hand side, going down the axes on the left-hand side, we've got different numbers here which show different seams. So the lower down we extract the water from, the hotter the water is. So as we pump the water up using a heat pump, the heat pump runs the hot water over an heat exchanger, which is then inside the heat exchanger, you'll have like an antifreeze liquid, so a liquid with a low boiling point, so it might be propane or whatever. So if we're pumping water out the mine out at 20 degrees over this heat exchanger, and then redistributing the water back into the mine, it's naturally heated up over time, so we can reuse it on like a closed loop system. But the heat going into people's houses is the desired heat we need because inside the heat exchange, we'll use what we call an antifreeze liquid, so it might be like propane with a low boiling point. And when we run this water, hot water, mine water, which is at constant temperature, over the heat exchanger, it gets this propane to the desired heat that is needed to heat the home space heating around the houses. So that's how that works. And there's some massive benefits to this. Obviously, the initial infrastructure is quite expensive, but over time it pays its way back because we're tackling things like heating poverty for people in different areas who may be struggling with the increasing cost of gas. We're taking massive amounts of CO2 out of the atmosphere, cutting down on this carbon footprint. And there's other things that it's doing as well. It's creating more technological advanced jobs in different up and coming areas. So at the moment, what we're hoping to do this on is there's 1,500 new houses being built in Barnsley. So we're wanting to use this project to heat those houses and possibly a new school. So the carbon footprint reduction there is absolutely massive. So, like I've said, the effects on local areas, you get leveling up in community skills, so you get better jobs, more technological advanced skills, so there's a need for more skilled workers in those jobs, so you get um, more engineering roles, more HR roles, more people working in logistics, more water specialists, more environmentalistic jobs. So by investing in green, which we're all hoping the government carries on doing and at a faster rate if possible, we're creating more jobs for people in these areas. So increasing energy security as we're sourcing it from a local area, reducing fuel poverty in these areas. And like I've said, this project that I'm working on will reduce carbon footprint for 1,500 homes in a school. So possible company benefits, what are we getting out of that apart from working with a community and obviously bothered about CO2 emissions and global warming, climate change? There's some things that we might be able to use it for. So we might be able to heat buildings around site which are not close to the furnace. Maybe cooling water for the site. So it's a hot process. Maybe you're regenerating this water, using it for cooling different things. But at the same time, like I said, we're upscaling the community and we could possibly even create carbon-free electricity from the heat that we've got on site as well as with the mine water, and then we could provide some of the this electricity to the national grid, use them ourselves. So lots of big benefits. So as well as the mine water project, which I'm working on, a couple of projects that I'm leading is looking at waste heat recovery around site. So like I've spoken, we all know about now, we're a really hot process, the glass industry, like the steel industry. And we've got things around site like industrial scale large gas boilers. So looking at alternatives for these and how we might be able to use some of the excess heat which is coming off the furnace, off the manufacturing production lines. So how we might distribute this heat, how we might recapture it, how we might remove the need for gas boilers. So one of the things that been looking at recently and just recently completed is removing 17 75 kilowatt gas heaters in the cold end, which is used for space heating. So a system that I've designed looks at using excess heat from the furnaces, cleaning that air, and then distributing it onto the cold end. Cuts down on cost, it cuts down on CO2 emissions. We're reusing something that we didn't think was possible 10, 20 years ago, so we're moving with the times. And obviously there's a project which I've spoke about as well, where using the heat pump system to capture the heat off one of the furnaces and use that for heating the industrial cleaning tanks. I mean, that project alone saves £45,000 a year, and it's cut down on like mass amounts of CO2. But as well as this, there's some other projects which I have considered and will be moving on to in the future. So fitting solar panels on all of the open roof space around site, rainwater capture, reducing logistical movement around site. So we've got a train line at Barnsley that brings raw materials on site, so sand, limestone, lime soda, and different other things as well. But we've also got a lot of wagons that are coming in and out every day, um, taking glass containers that we've made and then distributing them around the world. But let's say if we cut down on 20 wagons a day coming onto site, maybe 30 wagons a day coming onto site, but increase the amount that the train comes onto site, then by using one form of transport instead of 30 individual forms of transport, we're cutting down on CO2 emissions again. So it's not just in the production. Um, it's a distribution network, it's people who we're working with, looking at how we're recycling as products, looking what's happening to us plastic, as cardboard, where everything's going, reducing as oil usage, planting trees around sites, so looking at as biodiversity, action plan, making sure wildlife can flourish in as green areas. So if you'd just like to pause this video here one more time and have a discussion, think about what roles there are increasing demand within sustainability. So whether that's in industry, there's lots of different jobs where sustainability is massively important now and how we tackle climate change. So if you just want to have a think about some of those ideas, whether they're possible things that you'd like to do when you leave school, jobs you might like to get into in the future, just like to have a discussion, think about that. And then you can come back. So as you can see here with some of the job roles I've stuck on this slide and stuff that I've spoke about throughout this lecture, there's environmental engineer, scientists, public speakers, MPs, renewable energy engineers, energy managers, project engineers on site working in manufacturing like me. Um, there's teachers, educators, people that you've got at your school, people that you'll speak to at college, university as you advance. There's lots of different roles and areas that you can get into to tackle sustainability. So I hope some of you consider these roles in the future. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope you share the same enthusiasm that I do and other people do for tackling climate change and reducing CO2 emissions. I also hope I've broadened your horizon on different routes that you could take to getting into sustainability jobs, whether that's apprenticeship route, core route, going through a sixth form and then into university. There's lots of different roles to do that in. I just hope I've shown the benefits of the route that I've done, and the possible job prospects that are coming more popular and more of them for the future that you might consider taking. So thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and more important than anything, do it for David.